Alrighty, traders, happy Monday. Welcome to a Market Traders Institute Ask an Analyst session. I'm your host, Chris Pulver, and I'm joined by nobody today. Tyson is preoccupied, so is Gary, so is Tad, so is Tion. So it's just going to be me, just solo, but nice to be with everybody today on this Monday afternoon. It is the 19th of April, and we are live for MTI's Ask an Analyst session. I'm going to go and open it up to questions. I wanted to talk about a couple things, what we have going on in the markets. I want to talk about some stocks. Actually, Tyson and I finished up a great session for Equities on Demand this morning. It was super, super busy. We reviewed about all of 16 different symbols. We probably did more than that because we had a couple of our strategies offering 8 each. So we did over about 20 symbols today, tickers today. So Jordan in the house, Denise, hello, Kay, hello, nice to see everybody. So I thought what we'd start with, just let's get kind of the context of the larger time frames here. So I'm going to go to the daily chart. Notice that the SPY is selling off today. Currently, the dashboard. I've got a chart alarm triggering right now. Let me try to find it. What is that chart alarm? All right, I had a chart alarm just issue. There it is. There it is. There it is. Okay, there, there, there. Okay, so I was looking at Market Watch and look at the dashboard this morning. So the Dow is upside down 0.57% in the red. S&P is down 0.71%, and the Nasdaq Tech selling off negative 1.30. So global Dow overall is down. Gold 1770 to the ounce. Oil. I don't know what the deal is with oil. Well, I do. We just have a lot of resistance and support just lingering, but it's been pretty sideways. We have a lot of nice sell spots between $63 and $65. I did notice today in currencies that the Canadian dollar is one of the weakest currency pairs. So this is a live look at this currency strength chart. We have the CAD as one of the weakest of the entire day. We have the dollar also not doing so hot. The pound, for the first time in a long time, has really had a very active London session to U.S. session. From 5 o'clock onward, the pound has been ripping to the upside, and that's pretty interesting because it's been pretty dormant here the last couple of weeks. I'm curious, anybody have any feedback on what exactly is causing the pound to rally? I'm going to look today on some real-time news. Anything on the GBP? I want to see what we have here. OPEC discussing downgrading the meeting. Okay. Let's see. We've got things to know, market risk. Tokyo making decision state of emergency. IMF's managing director predicts multi-speed global recovery outlook. U.S. spending and overbought conditions may stop sterling. Okay. April highs as buyers stay in the hunt for sixth straight day of gains. That'd be like small day of gains. I'm looking specifically at pound US dollar. Pound punches above 1.38. It is still, in my opinion, it's still capped around 1.40, 1.42. So even in this near-term rally, I still see a lot of reasonable resistance around 1.40, 1.42 on that pound. So we have a recovery hinges on top-tier UK data, further Fed speculation. Okay, let's see, surrenders U.S. economic might. That was April 16th. So that's last week. We're talking about it today. Anyway, all right, so let's take a look at the charts. Let's go pound US dollar here. So, like I said, the major indices, the SPY, the diamonds, the Qs, all US indices selling off right now. We'll take a look. Oil is still pretty firm. Oil firm at $63.61. Again, on a daily chart, I would still imagine that oil is going to be pretty firm up into this area. So even if we have price coming back to retest, I can draw this out. If we have price coming back to retest these highs, I either see some range-bound conditions on oil. Keep in mind we had massive trend, a little bit of indecision on oil, and then another trend. So I would say the last kind of big cycles in oil, it's been, this is our last indecision cycle we had here. Lots of trend trading in oil. So if we start to comfortably, settle into some highs and lows, that's why I'm pretty bearish between, current price and $65, $66. I'm pretty bearish on oil to at least, settle back into a range like so. And if that's the case, we're looking at some downside on the Canadian dollar, downside in oil. So I'm watching that pretty carefully. Let's flip over to the dollar index. I'm just walking a lot of traders through what I do in my flex trading room. Okay. Look left on the higher time frame. This is the dollar index. Massive support down here that I'm going to go ahead and highlight in a couple critical spots. Also some support levels in here. So, if we're talking about accumulation areas, this is certainly one spot that the dollar bulls would be looking to come in and defend. Now, we could argue that this high to this high is still a bullish pattern, and we're just kind of finding that left tip and right tip symmetry, right? This would be our left tip symmetry with our right tip. So we have our crown pattern, and we're looking to see if the dollar can still push higher into this previous structure. So the case for the dollar is not changing. The way that this has been evaporating to the downside, you know, what it shows me on the higher time frame. Look at this daily chart. I talk a lot about this in my trading room. I talk about pockets. I talk about inefficiencies. Today's candle so far is creating a massive pocket. Okay, a massive pocket, which is good because I think that once this settles, maybe we push down so far and so fast that it settles in here. We build a bit of a base, and then we rally back up into this pocket for starters, and we work our way back up to these highs. So let's say that the pocket, for example, this would be a dollar bull target. This would be a dollar bull target, and then we would match the symmetry here, okay, to the upside towards 12,090 or these previous highs. This would be target 3 for the dollar bulls. But to get there, of course, it's not just, oh, Chris said it's bullish on the dollar. I mean, unless we see price actually starting to stall, then I'd say it's falling, right? And so that means don't jump into dollar pairs right away. Don't jump in super early. Let some of the price play out. But what's interesting is the dollar is weaker, but so is the CAD. Okay, and so if you look at this, I think we talked about this last Monday. The dollar CAD is still one of my favorite trades in Forex. Okay, I really like this structure right here on the dollar CAD, and I think that if we make a break for it, we want to see some nice confirmation on the right side of this trend line. I'd love to see the dollar CAD heading up towards 129, 130. Those to me are some pretty solid profit levels. That's a nice little window to take profit, and if it proceeds to go any higher, then I'm looking at this level here around 1.3350. Okay, so I still like the dollar CAD long. With a weaker CAD and weaker dollar, there's not really much activity on this one. But if we start to see this finally breaking, look for confirmation on the right-hand side of this trend line, and dollar CAD looks great. Euro dollar's heading upwards, right? Because the dollar's been weaker, so the euro dollar's heading back up, which is fine. If the euro dollar's heading back up, we might have this low could be connected. This could be creating a larger neckline here for a left shoulder head to neckline. We're just spending some time building a right shoulder. So if we have a lower high on the euro dollar, then we come back down to the neckline. If we end up coming back up to these highs, doesn't mean that it's a bullish play for the euro dollar. It means that in the near term, we might be going up to bullish, hit equal highs, fall back down to bearish, and we create some more consolidation coming. Right? So we could be looking for some of these, and again, it's still the middle of April. We still have, the next month and a half is primarily trending season for Forex. It's risk appetite in stocks. It's needed that we have a sell-off a bit today in the markets, but don't be surprised if we have some violent buy the dips. If anyone's watching cryptos this weekend, we had, new highs. I had so many chart alarms triggered last week on cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin made new highs. Ethereum made new highs. Litecoin made new highs. Ripple making new highs. Dogecoin going crazy, right? Doesn't mean that we shouldn't have pullbacks. And in fact, we did. We had some violent pullbacks, actually. So if anybody was paying attention, Bitcoin, big sell-off. Now, what I'm watching here, I talked about this morning on my YouTube channel at 9:30. This is a really key level to watch. Because for right now, this high around $65,000, if we drop and we take out the structure and we have a hard time making new highs, I think that we're putting in a bit more of a top on some of these cryptos. Now, that being said, this could be, one thing that you're going to have to be comfortable with if you're trading cryptocurrencies is volatility, right? I don't think anybody should forget about the fact that we went from $2,000 to $3,000 to $20,000, and then proceeded to see about 80 to 85% of that decline. And so this is just a totally different scale of it. But imagine this from the lows at, let's say, $4,000 all the way to $65,000. It can still pull back 70 to 80% of that way. So, again, this is what traders and speculators are going to have to deal with cryptocurrencies. Now, there can be some arguments out there like, well, there's more legitimacy now and there's more institutional buying and Coinbase is now public. Okay, fine. But that doesn't mean that cryptos have to be forever bullish. I mean, we know that the mining costs on Bitcoin are maybe 20 some $1,000s, maybe, right? And so if we have this crazy stretch, I mean, it's essentially 3 times stretched higher than its mining costs. And so if it's going to make a structural pattern, high, low, lower, high, lower, low, we might have a corrective phase down into those mining costs, create a corrective pattern like so, build up a base, accumulate more Bitcoin, and then we have another rally coming later. So if you're in this area, you're either holding tight, okay, or perhaps you had some traders that were protecting profits because we might be showing the signs of a rising wedge that is breaking. Okay, does anybody see that pattern? If I connect the highs right here, type in a wire if you see that pattern. If that's a rising wedge, this confirmation on the right-hand side of this trend line and this rising wedge is actually a pretty ominous sign for Bitcoin to drop further, at least into this area. Right? We'd be looking at least for price to drop back into previous high, this little pocket zone, and see if this becomes support. That's it. So, I mean, if it's going to fall, we might see Bitcoin, if it continues to decline, we're looking at something in the $43,000 range. So, from $65,000, that's a pretty big decline, right? But if we start to find the buying interest and we go from 40 some thousand and we double that, then all of a sudden we go from 40 some thousand to 90 some thousand, and we start to really have that conversation about Bitcoin and other coins, just $100,000 Bitcoin. Again, it's pure speculation. You got to be ready for higher volatility. Okay, because it's going to be here, and it's going to scare traders off. It's going to scare investors off. But if you're willing to take the chance, then there's opportunity. Okay. All right. So that is Bitcoin. We had other ones like Litecoin, hit highs of like $370, I believe. Not quite, $335 on Litecoin. The highs, if you go back to 2018 on Litecoin, were all the way up towards like $400. So that was 370. We had highs at 334. So again, Litecoin may have a little bit of a pullback. We go to the daily chart here, just looking at some interesting structure. This one seems, so far, Litecoin is still pretty well supported. So we could have high volatility on Litecoin. This could fall back into this trendline support. We have some major interest at that level. Maybe it doesn't take out the low. It just finds trendline support and then it works its way back up. So we could channel this out, look for Litecoin to make higher highs at some point, but a pullback towards, $225 and $200. I actually made a note on my chart as well. If we hit $225, I'm looking to buy more for Litecoin. So I do like that trade. Okay, Ripple. This one was pretty interesting. Really excited about Ripple last week. It made its way up to $1.96. I think the pretty obvious level right here is the past resistance, right? So past resistance right there, past resistance right there, and we just need to see if there's some bases that are being built. If we end up, bottoming out here, okay, then it's a push up, pull back to balance. This probably found a ton of pivots as well, and we'll see if Ripple can continue this run. Okay, the hard part is, for me, for example, I'm still wondering, like, when do I get out of Ripple? How do I get out of Ripple? Right now, as a U.S. trader, you're pretty limited your options. Fortunately, I have some traders that I work with that are non-U.S., and so we might have to strike a deal in the coming months or whatever. But I'll worry about that when I have to. Otherwise, I'll just set a chart alarm at the high at $1.96 and see if Ripple hits some new highs. Stock-wise, let's take a look. If interested, this week, over 200 companies in the S&P 500 are reporting earnings. So if you are interested in learning about that, I'll take a screenshot for you. These are some notables. If anybody is interested, I can send this in the chat. So today we had Coca-Cola, we had Prologis, sorry, clearly I don't know what that is. PLD, IBM, Equities on Demand. We set up a trade in IBM this is after market close today. So at 4 p.m., we're going to have some IBM earnings. Tomorrow morning when we start trading, we have a nice little iron condor strategy running, one of our straddles. And so we're looking to make a few bucks on the upside or downside for IBM. And hopefully that goes very well. We have United Airlines today, also aftermarket close. Steel Dynamics aftermarket close. Tomorrow, Johnson & Johnson. Speaking of Johnson & Johnson, hopefully they have a positive earnings report because I'm also bullish on a power play strategy from 2 weeks ago. Procter & Gamble is a big one to kick off earnings seasons. Abbott Labs, Philip Morris also, I believe. Philip Morris International is different than Altria, which is MO, but it used to be the same ticker. Lockheed Martin, Silvergate, Netflix, Verizon, let's see here. Halliburton, Cheney, the man Cheney. Chipotle, big one there. Most expensive taco in the world, Chipotle. Well, just it's just crazy how that company is just their stock price is ridiculous, right? Chipotle, CMG, their stock price is $1,546. Are you kidding me, man? That's nuts. All for fast food tacos, right? Crazy. And the lows last year, 417. Man, that's like almost 400% on freaking Chipotle. Unbelievable. Discover Financial Services, AT&T. I've got some call options running at AT&T, Southwest Airlines. Big story this week on airlines is whether or not they're going to start allowing those middle seats to come back and be filled. For the last, 12 months essentially, since we had our little pandemic and COVID-stricken contraction, we had a lot of airlines that are saying no more middle seats being filled, but they've lost a ton of money. We had, essentially the bailout towards airlines, but they're looking at bringing back the middle seat as the vaccination sweep across the world is ongoing. The U.S. is steadily vaccinating more and more people, so we might see that actually help their earnings, maybe help the narrative for airlines making a more steadfast recovery. Plus, you have this tone of revenge buying, right, where everyone that was stuck inside and working from home and being remote and just not being what we normally are accustomed to as human beings. We have all this extra money, supposedly. Never mind inflation. We have all this extra money that we're supposed to go out and spend. So we're going to just jump on planes and travel. Maybe that's an easy way to do it. Maybe you've been dying to go on a cruise. You've been dying to go to get some nice weather. Okay, well you can fly. So anyway, but there's quite a few airlines with earnings this week. Snap. I'm happy to say that I'm still in Snap from $17, and that's doing pretty well. It is currently at $59 and change. World Wrestling Entertainment. I'm going to actually talk to Tyson about this tomorrow. Let's see if we can trade some earnings on WWE. I'm curious what he's got lined up for that. It's at $56.49. We had highs at $100. Wow. Vince McMahon must be proud. American Express and Honeywell International, Kimberly-Clark. That again, those aren't all of them. We have over 200 companies with earnings this week. These are some of the big ones from the notables, and we'll certainly be looking to trade those in Equities on Demand. All right, so looking forward to that. Okay, you want to go into some currencies? That's fine. So I want to get some stock stuff out there. Currencies that I like. Like I said, I still love the dollar CAD. It's one of my favorites for this week. I'm also looking to see how the Euro Aussie behaves. Okay, it's been steady. All right, I mean we've had some decent bases here around this $5,200 area. My destination for this Euro Aussie is to head back up into 1.60. So I'm looking at this previous support way over here, right? And I'm looking to see now that we have broken this trend line on the Euro Aussie. I'm looking for this to break the trend line, build some base and support off the right side of the trend line, and head up into 1.60 or higher. So I mentioned this last week in AAA. This is one of my favorite currency pairs. I mentioned this on my YouTube channel. I like this. I'm still long in it. I've got a couple of positions I've used with my Price Action Pro, and we're in 3 small trades. We're looking to accumulate some small buy positions, and we're going to take some profit at 1.60 or higher. I also like the Euro New Zealand. Similar story. Let me get rid of these lines here. Similar story. Lots of support right in this area. Okay, lots of support right there. We also broke a recent trend line. So let me draw the trend line here. Okay, recent trend line. I like that trend line right there. So support rallied up above the trend line. I see us hesitating a little bit right here. So the bulls need to defend this area, right? If the bulls are here to defend, we can rally up to the top. If we break above this high, then I'm looking for this continuation up towards the 170, 100 highs, 172. So if you're writing down some numbers, Euro Aussie, write down 1.60 or higher. If you're on Euro New Zealand, write down 1.70 or higher. And 70 is not that far away. In fact, if I delete these lines, 1.70 is literally just above these highs. These highs are like 1.6988, 1.6990. Check it out. That high was 6988. This high over here was 6983. So we've closed within about 12 pips, 20 pips of that 1.70 high. So I'm still looking for the Euro Aussie to still build here, work its way to this 170 level. What I'd like to see is if we can break this area. If we break above 1.70, I think we can stretch a little bit further. I think we can have this low to high, higher low to higher high. And I could see us getting all the way back into potentially 173. So we'll keep an eye on it. We're watching this really closely in the Flex Room. Again, our Price Action Pro has accumulated some small buy trades, and we're looking to stay long until we hit our 170 or higher. Looks pretty good. Let's see here. Is it possible to share the stock sheet that you had up, Abraham? I'm not sure what stock sheet you're talking about. If it's, are you a student in Equities on Demand? I'm not sure. Oh, you just want the screenshot of that? Oh yeah, just the earnings. Yeah, sure. It's just this. Yeah, those are earnings. I'll share that in the chat. That's fine. I'll take this. These are just notable earnings for this week. Yep. So let me grab this here and paste it. So earnings this week, notables. There you go. So that's a link you can click on, and it just has all the notables from this week. Again, it's BMO is before market open, AMC is after market close. Okay, so it's either pre-market, post-market, and that's how you know when those earnings are coming out. One that we were trying to trade today was actually HOG, which is Harley Davidson, but they actually reported earnings this morning. So we did not have a chance to take that trade. But that was a really good one as far as our metrics and the way that we set those up with earnings. Unfortunately, the report just came out. So it is what it is. All right, that's Euro Aussie, Euro New Zealand. Let me go to a couple more. What else do I like here? I did turn on my perfect storm again for Aussie CAD, New Zealand CAD, Euro CAD, and Aussie. Let's see, Aussie CAD, New Zealand CAD, Euro CAD, and Aussie New Zealand. Those are just going to continue to watch. Let's take a look at some of those dollar crosses. Let's go Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar. All right, keep an eye on this Aussie dollar. No, like I said, I don't want to jump in and just assume that the dollar is going to get super strong. Okay, right now, if it is easier for the Aussie, and I'm throwing it out there, if it's easier for the Aussie to keep pushing higher for right now, we might be looking at something like this. And I'm just saying, this looks to be a pretty solid topping pattern right now. Okay, it's just taking some time, but look at this. This low, okay, to this low. If we have a topping pattern, we could be setting up a right tip over here around 7,800. Okay, so I'm looking for resistance. Let me delete this. I'm looking for resistance right here around 7,800. I'm looking for a potential equal high around 8,000. Now we could come back into this high as well, right? And so although this looks great for the Aussie to start going back down again, we might end up testing this high. We might end up going back to new highs and then creating a crown pattern this way, right? So I still like the outlook of a weaker Aussie versus the dollar, right? But on the higher time frame, I just want to be mindful of where this thing could return. I mean, we've literally spent from the bottom and the flash crash lows in March of last year, we have been just pushing as hard as we possibly can to the upside. And it makes sense that to this high, until the bulls can score a point, or to this past support become resistance, this Aussie may continue to push. So I'm watching for this to be a topping pattern. I recognize that if it goes a little bit higher, I still really like the opportunity to short this. I think that if you give this currency pair time, this low to this high is going to still find a way to balance. So I mean, let's look at the big picture. Every time we have this massive sell-off, do you see that it takes some time, but it still retraced about 50% of that move, right? Even this crazy rally here, it still retraced about 38 to 50% of that move. So the same thing here. This could be just a massive swing. I think we'll find a way to correct 38 to 50%. All right. And so I'm trying to identify those levels. And right now, this area just above 8,000 or 8,100, that to me is a great spot to look to sell. All right. So again, stay patient. And we'll talk about this probably this week in my flex room. We'll probably talk about this high, maybe these highs, maybe putting in a price action pro up in this area, looking to sell confirmation. If we get it, I think we've got an excellent trade coming back down. All right. So I'm actually looking forward to that session tomorrow morning for flex. Same thing on New Zealand US dollar. Okay. New Zealand US dollar, same thing. Look at these highs over here. Previous resistance around 7,500. Okay. Now we were just shy of that not too long ago. Okay, this is a weekly chart, by the way. So could we have the New Zealand US dollar rallying up here, using this high, maybe coming back to test the high, but failing, and then working its way back down into some type of corrective move, right? We can find that 38%. We can find that 50%. We can build a base like we have here and here. We can find lots of support on this New Zealand US dollar. But if we have the opportunity to sell this nice and high, very interested in selling this nice and high, right? And we've taken a lot of trades here. We sold this thing, several times, made some nice profits. We're looking to resell, looking to make some more profits. So we're not done. We're not done by a long shot. But watch these levels. Okay, watch these levels. So ideally, I'd like to set this up where Aussie dollar, we can sell it, and same thing with New Zealand dollar. Sell it nice and high. Look for confirmation, look for rejections, look for trend line breaks, look for bearish candlestick formations. Okay, look for price patterns on those smaller time frames. So I think that's a good takeaway here is look for bearish candlesticks. So those would be the patterns like your dark cloud cover, your bearish engulfing, tweezer tops, evening stars, patterns like that would be great. Okay, look for price patterns on smaller time frames. So that would be looking for a sub crown, looking for a head and shoulders pattern, looking for a rising wedge, looking for double tops, looking for lots of equal highs to sell. Okay. And if you want to keep it really simple, look for trendline breaks. Right? So if we take this down to a smaller time frame, let's go to a 4-hour chart. Okay, like right now, is there any reason to sell this New Zealand dollar? Not really. Let's look and see how this trend line behaves. If price goes, let's say price goes up a little bit higher, right? Let's say price goes up a little bit higher. Well, draw a trend line, connect those lows, and if price ends up breaking, you can look to sell it from inner trend line to outer trend line. And if it stays with a bigger picture, perhaps it breaks the outer trend line, comes back down to the lows. So a little confirmation goes a long way. Make sense? All right. So dollar CAD, good looking trade. Aussie dollar, good looking trade. New Zealand dollar, good looking trade. Right now, it looks like the dollar weakness is here to stick around a little bit. If you take a look at the calendar for the week, economic calendar for the week, let me go to just high impact only. Okay, it's not a super busy high impact calendar, but there's some big announcements. We have rate decision on Wednesday for the Bank of Canada. Interesting to see what that dollar CAD does. Perhaps that dollar CAD starts to get some fuel this week on Wednesday. We'll find out. Okay, European Central Bank, ECB press conference and rate decision. Main refinancing rate supposed to be the same at 0%. If I go to medium impact, we'll see that. Let's go medium impact here. Look at Thursday. Okay, main refinancing rate expected to stay the same at 0%. Unemployment claims for the U.S. last week was better than expected, right? Last week forecast of 703 came in 576. So if we see, job numbers looking better for the U.S., okay, fine. We'll see what risk appetite looks like in the stock market this week. We have a lot of Eurozone news. From Thursday to Friday, it's pretty much all Eurozone. We have PMI numbers coming out of France and Germany and the Eurozone. We have ECB refinancing rate or rate decision. We have Bank of Canada rate decision and press conference from 10 to 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Retail sales for Aussie, CPI out of the UK, and some unemployment news out of the UK on Tuesday, but no major impact news for today. Okay, so that's what the FX calendar is shaping up to look like. We have a huge earnings report this week. And maybe it's an easy sell-off today in the stock market simply because, what do we want to see? What does the overall market want to see this week with 200 plus companies reporting earnings? What does the market want to see this week? Right? Would it make sense to sell off early in the week as you get like Wednesday, Thursday, the meat of the trading? Wouldn't it make sense that the markets, kind of sell off early on and then we had this aggressive buying to the finish out the week? It wouldn't surprise me. Now, I talked about this morning. We've had a 9+% rally, or it's about 8.6% from this low to this high, and we blew off these highs by about 4%. That's a big deal. So the SPY has broken up above the highs by about 4%. We're on a almost a 9% rally from this recent March low. Okay, the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones, this stretch has gone over 11%. It's crazy. Like, look at the diamonds. So the Dow Jones, I'm looking at DIA, Dow Jones. DIA, there we go. Okay, so we're at 340. This recent low back in late March, this is an 11+% rally. From right here to right here, that's 11+%. So even if we just have a pullback, look, this is good structure. This is a nice little gap. We could pull back into this area. We could come back and find some trendline support and see where the market's interested in buying dips if we're going to keep stretching higher. Make sense? All right, so that's what we're watching this week. There's a lot of earnings. It's going to be interesting to see what the overall painting the picture of the market looks like. Watch a heat map. I'm going to see if it's predominantly bullish or bearish. Is it sector related, or is it just the overall markets? Okay, someone's asking about the pound US dollar. I'll go pound US dollar. On the 4-hour chart, pound US dollar for the last couple of days, this goes back to last Friday, 37.20 all the way to 39.80. This is up 270 pips. Now, again, this doesn't really change my outlook on the pound US dollar. Okay, I've said, based on this trend line right here, that I like, the backside of this trend line being tested and still looking for an opportunity to sell it. Now, I'm not in the pound dollar right now, but here's what I'm going to look for this week. Okay, two spots. One is this high at 1.40, which we're very close to it, and then this high here at 1.42 and change. Okay, these are the two spots I would be watching. Notice, remember that dollar index I was talking about. You remember me talking about this pocket, talking about the inefficiency. Do you notice how this pound candle right now is also creating a pocket inefficiency? So I could see this low holding, coming back to this area, stalling at the backside of the trend line, and then coming back down to the lows. Okay, if this pushes up higher and stays aggressive and stays bullish, I would look for this area at 1.42 to look for some trendline breaks, look for overbought conditions, and try to sell this back down into a pocket. So I think that this move on the pound US dollar is still pretty limited to the upside, but I'm looking for this to fall back down at one of those two spots. Okay, but that's a good pair to keep an eye on. Okay, good pair to keep an eye on. And again, lots of resistance. Lots of resistance there, lots of resistance here. We could go up, hit those highs, and then create a topping pattern. And we had this rally. We end up finding a topping pattern here. So we have an A to B. We're looking for a topping pattern to form the C. And then we still have longer term plays that come to a D extension later. But I would imagine that the stronger move, as far as give this thing 2 months, 3 months, that we're going to be capping the move at 1.40, capping the move at 1.42, and having the pound dollar slide lower. Okay. All right. That was a little whirlwind half hour, but any questions? I mean, we addressed some currencies, addressed a lot of earnings this week. It's going to be a busy week in the stock market. 4 or 5 currency pairs that look great. Keep an eye on some really important levels. I would appreciate if everyone took a chance just to hit that thumbs up button for us, like the videos, pass the video on every single Monday. Myself or Tyson or Gary, Tion, Tad, our team, any combination of us looking to get together, shoot the breeze, talk shop, and see what type of opportunities we have every single week. So if you have any questions, let us know. This is a great spot. If you're catching this after the fact, again, you can leave comments for us. We review those comments or bring it into next week's session. We'll be back live again on Monday. So Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern time, join us for Chipotle, Ask an Analyst. Okay. All right, traders. Thanks a lot for being with me today. Happy Monday, and I'll see all of you this week in the Flex Room. I'll see you every single day in Equities on Demand. If you'd like more information on that, let us know. But we're here. Okay, here to help, and